The forest was silent in a way that felt heavy, like the world itself was holding its breath. Somewhere deep between the dark trees, an old man was alone, cold and slowly losing hope. And he had no idea that a pair of long ears and a powerful nose were already searching for him. The man's name was Rafael Moreno. He was 78 years old, his body fragile from years of illness, his hands shaking from a condition that made even simple movements difficult. His memory wasn't what it used to be either. Some days were clear, other days felt like thick fog in his mind. That morning, the fog had won. Raphael had stepped outside his small home in a quiet neighborhood near the edge of town. The air was cool and the sky was pale, like the day itself hadn't fully woken up yet. He only meant to walk a few steps, maybe look at the road, maybe feel the breeze on his face. But something pulled him forward, a sound, a memory, or maybe just the strange urge to keep walking. One step became 10, 10 became 100, and before Raphael realized it, the houses were gone. The path turned into dirt, the dirt turned into grass. Then the grass disappeared under thick bushes and tall trees. The forest swallowed the road behind him without making a sound. Raphael stopped. He looked around. Everything looked the same: trees, shadows, leaves. He tried to turn back, but nothing looked familiar anymore. His heart began to beat faster. His breath became short and tight in his chest. "Hello," he whispered, though his voice was weak. No answer came back, not even the sound of birds. He was lost. Time moved strangely in the woods. The sun climbed higher, then slowly began to fall. Raphael's legs hurt, his mouth was dry. He had left home without food, without water, without his medicine. At first, he told himself he would be found soon. Someone would notice, someone would come. But as the light faded, fear started to creep in. The air grew colder, the wind moved through the trees like a soft warning. Raphael leaned against a thick trunk and slid down to sit on the ground. His breathing was loud in his own ears. His hands trembled and his thoughts felt messy and slow. He thought about his daughter Elena. He thought about her voice, the way she always told him not to wander too far. He remembered promising her he wouldn't. The memory made his chest tighten with regret. He closed his eyes for just a moment, then another moment, then the cold brought him back. Far away from the forest, Elena was standing in her kitchen, staring at the front door. It had been hours. Her father should have been back by now. He never stayed out long. Panic slowly took hold of her chest. She called his name from the doorway. No answer. She walked down the street. No answer. Her heart began to pound. She called neighbors. She called friends. Within minutes, worry turned into fear, and fear turned into action. Soon, flashing lights painted the street in red and blue. Officers moved quickly, asking questions, writing notes, speaking into radios. The search began to grow, spreading from the small neighborhood into the dark line of trees at the edge of town. Flashlights cut through the shadows, boots pressed into soft ground, voices echoed calling Raphael's name. But the forest did not answer. As the hours passed, the temperature dropped. The cold crept into Raphael's bones. He pulled his thin jacket closer around himself, but it did little to help. His lips were cracked. His tongue felt like sandpaper. Every movement made his muscles ache. At one point he tried to stand. His legs shook beneath him, and he fell back down. The breath knocked from his chest. Panic surged. Tears filled his eyes, not from pain, but from the deep, quiet fear that this might be where his story ended. He pressed his forehead against his knees. "I just want to go home," he whispered into the dark. Back at the search area, the team knew time was not on their side. The forest was large, night had fallen, and the man they were looking for was weak, confused, and alone. That was when the handler arrived with his partner. The dog was named Atlas. Atlas was a bloodhound, young but powerful, with long ears that brushed the ground and eyes that seemed calm, almost wise. He had trained for moments like this. His handler, Officer Daniel Reed, knelt beside him, placing a gentle hand on his back. They needed a scent. Raphael's daughter rushed home and brought back a pair of her father's old sandals. The leather was worn from years of use. Officer Reed took a small cloth and carefully rubbed it along the inside of the sandals, capturing every trace of Raphael's smell. Then he placed the cloth into a small container and warmed it slightly, letting the scent rise into the air. Atlas's nose twitched, his body became still. Then his tail moved. In that moment, the forest was no longer just a wall of trees. To Atlas, it was a map made of invisible trails. The dog lowered his nose to the ground, inhaled deeply, and then took his first step forward. "Find him, boy," Officer Reed whispered. Atlas moved with purpose. His pace was steady, not rushed, not slow. He followed a path no human eye could see, weaving through bushes, stepping over roots, pushing past branches. The night felt thick around them. The only sounds were breathing, soft footsteps, and the quiet movement of leaves. Minutes passed, then more minutes. Suddenly, Atlas stopped. His ears lifted. His nose pressed closer to the ground. Then, without warning, he pulled forward with new energy, his body leaning into the leash. Officer Reed's heart jumped. "This is it," he murmured. They moved faster now, pushing deeper into the brush. The ground became rougher, thorns scratched at their clothes. The forest seemed to tighten around them, as if trying to hide what it held. And then Atlas barked. It wasn't loud, but it was clear. They were close. As they pushed past a wall of branches, the beam of a flashlight caught something on the ground, a hand, thin, pale, shaking. Raphael lay curled near the base of a fallen tree, barely moving. His eyes opened slowly when the light touched his face. For a second, fear crossed his features, then confusion, then slowly, relief. The dog reached him first. Atlas stepped forward gently and lowered his head, sniffing the old man's face. Raphael's eyes widened at the sight of the large dog so close to him. Then he did something no one expected. He smiled. "A big dog," he whispered, his voice weak but filled with wonder. Officer Reed knelt beside him, his voice calm and steady. "You're safe now. We've got you. You're not alone anymore." Tears rolled down Raphael's cheeks. His body shook, not just from the cold, but from the sudden release of fear that had been building for hours. The forest that had felt like a prison now felt like a place he was finally leaving behind. As they wrapped Raphael in warm blankets and lifted him carefully, Atlas sat beside him, watching closely, his tail slowly tapping against the ground. The dog had done his job, but the story wasn't over yet. While they began the careful journey back through the forest, Raphael's mind drifted in and out of clarity. He heard voices. He felt hands supporting him. He felt warmth slowly return to his fingers. In the distance, he thought he heard his daughter crying, and somehow that sound felt like home. Before we continue this intense journey and reveal what happened after Raphael was brought out of the forest, take a second to show some love. If stories like this move you, tap the like button so more people can see them. And if you want more emotional, real-life stories that keep you on the edge of your seat, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. The night air felt colder as they moved, but Raphael's heart felt lighter. For the first time in hours, he allowed himself to believe that he would see his family again. But deep in the forest behind them, the silence slowly returned, as if nothing had happened at all. The cold night air wrapped around them as they moved through the trees, each step careful, each breath visible in the thin beam of the flashlights. Raphael could feel hands holding him steady, guiding him forward, lifting him when his legs gave up. Every sound felt far away, like he was listening from underwater. His thoughts drifted in and out. At times, he was back in the forest, alone and scared. At other moments, he felt safe, carried by voices that sounded strong and sure. The big dog stayed close, its warm body brushing against his side now and then, as if reminding him that this was real. The forest seemed endless. Branches grabbed at jackets, leaves crunched under boots. The ground dipped and rose, making every step harder than the last. The rescue team moved slowly so they wouldn't stumble. No one complained. No one rushed. They all knew one wrong step could hurt the fragile man they had just found. Raphael's eyes opened again. "Am I dreaming?" he asked quietly. Officer Reed leaned closer so Raphael could hear him. "No, sir, you're awake. We're taking you home." The word home echoed in Raphael's mind like a bell. It pulled memories forward. His small living room, the old couch by the window, the smell of coffee in the morning. His daughter's voice calling his name. The images made his throat tighten. His body trembled harder now, not just from the cold, but from the shock that was finally catching up to him. He had survived the night, but his strength was fading fast. His lips were dry and cracked. His muscles felt stiff and weak, like they no longer belonged to him. The team reached the edge of the forest. As soon as they stepped out into the open area, bright lights rushed toward them. A vehicle door opened. Someone ran forward with a thick blanket. Another person held a bottle of water but stopped, remembering that Raphael needed medical care first. Voices overlapped, radios crackled. The calm forest was replaced by movement, light, and sound. Then Raphael heard a voice he knew. "Dad!" Eleanor broke through the group, her eyes wide, her face pale, her hands shaking. She dropped to her knees beside him, not caring about the cold ground. Tears poured down her cheeks as she gently touched his face, afraid he might disappear if she touched him too hard. "You scared me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm here," Raphael said softly. "I'm here now." She laughed and cried at the same time, pressing her forehead against his hand. For a moment, the world around them faded. There was no forest, no flashing lights, no uniforms, just a father and daughter finding each other again. Atlas sat nearby, watching quietly. Elena noticed him then, the large dog with the long ears and calm eyes. She looked at the handler, then back at the dog. "He found my dad?" she asked. Officer Reed nodded. "He did most of the work. We just followed him." Elena reached out slowly and placed her hand on Atlas's head. The dog didn't move away. His tail thumped gently against the ground. "Thank you," she whispered to the dog, her voice full of emotion. Atlas didn't understand the words, but he understood the feeling. He leaned into her touch, calm and steady, like this was just another quiet moment in a long day of work. Raphael was carefully lifted onto a stretcher. The movement made him wince, but he didn't complain. The warmth of the blanket wrapped around him, and for the first time in many hours, his body stopped shaking. As they placed him inside the waiting vehicle, he turned his head slowly, looking for the dog. "Big dog," he murmured again, a faint smile touching his lips. Atlas lifted his head, ears hanging low, eyes gentle. The door closed. The vehicle began to move. The forest faded into the distance, swallowed by darkness once more. Inside the vehicle, Raphael drifted between sleep and waking. He felt a cool touch on his arm as someone checked his pulse. He heard quiet voices talking about dehydration, muscle strain, shock. The words meant little to him. What mattered was that he wasn't alone anymore. The ride felt long, even though it wasn't. Lights passed by the windows. The sound of the engine hummed in a steady rhythm. Raphael's mind wandered through memories, some clear, some broken. He remembered being young, walking strong and fast. He remembered carrying Elena on his shoulders when she was small. He remembered promising her that he would always be careful. The promise hurt now. At the medical center, more lights, more voices, more hands. The cold air outside was replaced by warmth. Raphael was moved gently from one bed to another. Tubes were attached. Warm fluids slowly entered his body. His muscles ached as if they had run a long race. Elena stayed close, never leaving his side. Hours passed. The night slowly gave way to early morning. The world outside the window began to turn pale with the first hint of sunrise. Raphael's breathing became steadier. The tight grip of fear that had wrapped around his chest finally began to loosen. A doctor spoke quietly to Elena, explaining what had happened. Dehydration, muscle breakdown, severe exhaustion, dangerous but not too late. "He's lucky," the doctor said, "very lucky." Elena nodded, wiping her eyes. He had help. She thought of the dog in the forest, the way Atlas had stood close to her father, calm and patient. The image stayed with her. Raphael slept for a long time. When he woke, the room was quiet. The light was soft. For a moment, he didn't know where he was. Then he saw Elena sitting in a chair near his bed, her head resting against the wall, her eyes closed in a tired sleep. "Lena," he whispered. She woke instantly, her eyes snapping open. "Dad?" "I'm here," he said again, the words feeling stronger this time. She smiled through fresh tears and took his hand. "You scared me so much." "I'm sorry," he said. The words felt small compared to the fear he had caused, but they were all he had. "You don't have to be sorry," she replied softly. "You just have to come home." Days passed. Raphael grew stronger little by little. Drinking water no longer hurt. Standing no longer made his legs shake as much. The pain in his muscles slowly eased. He laughed weakly with Eleanor, telling her bits and pieces of what he remembered from the forest. The trees, the cold, the feeling of being watched by shadows. But the one memory that stayed clear was the dog. "The big dog came," he told her. "He found me." Elena smiled. He did. When Raphael was finally allowed to leave, someone had arranged something special. They brought him to a quiet place near the station. The building was simple. The air smelled faintly of metal and clean floors. Raphael walked slowly, leaning on Elena's arm. Then he saw the dog again. Atlas was sitting near his handler, calm as ever. When he saw Raphael, his ears lifted slightly. His tail began to move. Raphael stopped walking. For a long moment the two simply looked at each other. Then Raphael took a slow step forward. "Big dog," he said again, his voice warm this time. Atlas stood and walked over, his movements gentle. He lowered his head so the old man could reach him. Raphael placed his hand on the dog's head, his fingers sinking into the soft fur. His eyes filled with tears. "I thought I was alone," he whispered, "but you came." Atlas leaned closer, pressing his warm body against Raphael's legs. No one spoke. Some moments didn't need words. The handler watched quietly, his chest tight with emotion. He had seen many rescues, many reunions, but something about this one felt different. Maybe it was the way the old man looked at the dog, not like a tool or a helper, but like a friend who had walked into the darkness to bring him back. After a while, Raphael stepped back, his legs growing tired. "Thank you," he said, though he knew the dog couldn't understand the words. Still, the feeling was clear. As they turned to leave, Raphael looked back one last time. The dog sat calmly, watching him go, tail moving slowly. On the ride home, Raphael stared out the window. The world looked different now. The trees no longer felt like walls. They were just trees again. The road felt familiar. The sky felt wide and open. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Sometimes, when everything feels lost, help finds you in the most unexpected form. The days after coming home felt strange for Raphael, like stepping into a life that didn't fully feel like his yet. The house looked the same, but everything inside him had changed. The silence in the rooms felt louder now. At night, he would wake up suddenly, his heart racing, his body tense as if he were still lying on the cold forest floor. The memory of dark branches above his head would rush back to him, sharp and real. He would sit up in bed, breathing hard, trying to remind himself that he was safe. Eleanor noticed it right away. She began leaving a small lamp on in the hallway at night. The soft light spilled into his room, gentle and warm, pushing away the shadows. She would sit with him when he woke, holding his hand until his breathing slowed. "It's over now," she would whisper. "You're home." But for Raphael, part of the forest had come back with him. Sometimes, while sitting by the window, he would stare at the trees in the distance. They no longer looked scary, but they felt powerful. He understood now how easy it was for a person to disappear, how quickly the world could become quiet and empty. The doctors had warned them. His body had been under serious stress. His muscles had broken down from the cold and exhaustion. His lack of water had nearly pushed him past the point of no return. Recovery would take time, rest, care, and patience. Elena rearranged her life without hesitation. She took time off work. She made sure Raphael never walked alone. She placed notes near the door to remind him not to wander. Small things, simple things, but done with love. Raphael didn't argue. For the first time, he understood how fragile he truly was. One afternoon, as sunlight filled the living room, Raphael turned to Elena. "I want to see him again," he said. She knew exactly who he meant. "The dog," she smiled. Raphael nodded. "The big one." A few days later, they returned to the station. The building felt less intimidating this time. The officers greeted them with warm smiles. Some recognized Raphael immediately. They shook his hand gently, careful not to tire him. Then Atlas appeared. The dog walked in calmly, his long ears swinging slightly with each step. When he saw Raphael, he paused. For a moment, it looked like he was thinking. Then his tail began to move. Raphael's face lit up. "There he is," he whispered, his voice full of quiet joy. Atlas walked over and sat in front of him, patient and still. Raphael reached out and rested his hand on the dog's head again. The fur was warm beneath his palm. The feeling grounded him in a way nothing else could. "Good boy," Raphael said softly. "Very good boy." The handler smiled. "He remembers you." Raphael chuckled. "I could never forget him." They spent a few minutes together, just like that. No rush, no noise, just an old man and the dog who had led people through darkness to find him. When it was time to leave, Raphael stood slowly. His legs were stronger now, but he still moved carefully. He placed both hands on his cane and took a steady breath. "Take care of him," he told the handler, nodding toward Atlas. The handler nodded back. "He'll keep helping people find their way home." On the ride back, Raphael leaned his head against the window. The world outside moved slowly. Trees, roads, people going about their lives, unaware of how close some of them were to being lost forever. He thought about the night in the forest, the cold, the fear, the moment when he believed no one would find him, and then the soft sound of a dog's breath, the feeling of not being alone anymore. His chest tightened, not with fear this time, but with gratitude. Life slowly returned to a quiet routine, mornings with warm coffee, afternoons with sunlight through the window, evenings with Elena's voice filling the house. But Raphael was different now. He listened more, he watched more. He noticed small things he used to ignore. The way light moved across the floor, the sound of the wind in the trees, the comfort of having someone nearby. He had faced the edge of being truly alone, and he had come back. If this story touched your heart, take a second to support the channel. Hit the like button so more people can hear stories like this, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one. Raphael often told visitors about the night he got lost. He didn't talk much about the fear, he talked about the dog. "The big dog found me," he would say with a small smile, "when I thought no one would come." And that was the lesson he carried with him from that long, cold night in the forest. Even when the world feels silent, even when the path disappears, help can still find you.